this particular brief session is going to be specifically about love and relationships. And before I start, I just wanted to briefly just, dispel any types of myths about whether or not I am able to provide sound guidance or not, and a little bit about my background. So I have two children. I had them pretty much at very opposite ends of my life. I had my daughter a month before I turned 19, so I was still 18, pretty much still a baby myself, but she was planned to my mom's horror. And then when I was 40, I had my son. He was planned as well. Now, with neither of these children, I was not married. Now, with my daughter, I wasn't married because I was just too young and I was just not even mature. Now, with my son, I was engaged, and at that, of course, at 40, my clock pretty much based off of medical science had already stopped ticking. So, that was just a personal choice that I made. So, anyway, saying that to say, you know, that is the reason for maybe what some people would consider inconsistency in what I am practicing and so called preaching or speaking about. Now, as far as my relationship status, now I will talk about that, me not being married. Now, I like to say this: just because someone is married does not make them the guru of love, because people can be married and they may not even be in love. People can be married, they could be in abusive relationships. People could be married and they could be a cheater or being cheated on. And neither one is a good situation. And neither one of that, I don't think, if someone is teaching someone that they should remain with someone that is cheating on them, habitually cheating on them, then I don't think that that's sound advice, regardless if someone is married or not. Okay, so let me say that. So the point that I'm trying to make is not to judge the book by the cover before you know what the contents entail. You know, I these are the things that I believe as far as relationships are concerned. I believe that there are different types of relationships, meaning that some people don't, when you're dealing with some certain types of practices, don't believe in legal marriage. You have partnerships. You have some people that are homosexual, that in the state that they live in, they can't be legally married. So does that make their union less official than someone that is a man and woman and they are registered with the state? See, so that's just how my mind works as far as love and relationships are concerned. When I say don't judge the book before you know the contents, my belief is there are certain relationships that are different. They're different for different people. I believe that at the crux of relationships, you have to have certain things for it to function properly. You have to have respect. Both parties have to have respect for each other. You have to have love. If you're talking about a marriage, if you're talking about I believe some people say, well, you don't really need love to make a marriage work, and that's up for debate. I do believe that if the two parties don't initially love each other, I think that time, and as people stay together and they love each other and they honor each other, I think the love comes. That's just what I believe. Because if you look at some cultures where they have they have arranged marriages, these people don't even know each other. So to say that they love each other would just be foolish. But as they stay with each other, I believe that not all, but I don't know if there's any statistics on how many of these type of marriages develop into love. Eventually, but initially they're not loving each other. It's prearranged. They're not marrying because of love. So some people may say, well, you don't need love to make a marriage work. Now, for me, I believe that you do have to develop love. If it's not there in the beginning, love has to be developed. It has to exist in order for the marriage to be healthy and for it to last. Because if you don't love the person that you're with, the choices that you make are going to be selfish. And anytime you're in a marriage cannot, I don't believe, not be healthy without there being some type of unselfishness on the part of both parties. So that is what I believe about that. I also don't believe in sticking it out in regardless of what the situation is, just for the sake of being married. I don't believe in it. I've seen the ramifications of what that looks like for people to stay with mates that are abusive, mates that cheat on, habitual cheaters, mates that are not committed and they only think about themselves. They don't think about the family. I see what that produces. So I don't think that a person should stick it out regardless of what's going on in that particular marriage. I believe that there are some times where you just have to let, even if it's a marriage, you have to let it go. The same would apply for a relationship that is the goal to eventually be married. Now, if people are now let me talk about the difference between what I believe the difference between a companionship, just looking for a companion and looking for a person that you're going to be with for the rest of your life, because a companion is a little bit different. A companion is someone that you have fun with. It's pretty much in the moment, and whatever happens. A marriage is like you've made a commitment to make things work, to be with that person. What does it say? Till death do you part. So there's a difference between the two. And in a companionship, there, may not be love. It's never may grow into love. It's just, and it may work, for those individuals, but there's different characteristics of what you would look for in a companion than something that you would look for in a person, a potential spouse. So those are just my beliefs. I also believe that there have to be some mutually agreeable points of interest in order for things to develop and blossom and bloom and move forward. So those are the things that I believe. But at the end of the day, I don't provide like love coaching or spiritual coaching or not say spiritual coaching, love coaching and things like that. So at the end of the day, I don't see why it would matter, but I'm just kind of saying that so that if there are any questions, I can just address those up front. I don't provide love coaching or anything like that. I could do a love reading, but that has nothing to do with me. That is me being able to, if I'm using cards, which I don't need, but if I'm using cards or if there's a numerology chart, it's pretty much reading what's for you. It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with me at all. So, but for those that would like that bit of information, that background information about me, those are my beliefs. And that is a little bit about my background. I also feel for me, I remember, when I was younger and I just had to be married, that created a certain mindset in me. That created a certain mindset that I would put up with all kind of foolishness and shenanigans from men. And it didn't change the behavior, and it ultimately did not change the outcome of those relationships. Now, what did happen is it changed me. I would typically have to dumb myself down, or I typically would have to turn my a blind eye to behavior that was not okay. So I would say that to say to any woman that has been married, is looking to be married again, and has seen the mistakes in your previous marriage or your previous relationship, one that has not been married, or a young girl, you be at the ultimate thing, I think, is to be true to yourself. So this goes into my topic about what type of men to avoid, 3 type of men to avoid, and why sometimes it's better just to be by yourself. And then what to look for in a good man. Because when you've seen relationships, and with either in yourself that you've had relationships that you've had failed relationship, and then relationships with other, you start to know what characteristics produce healthy, loving relationships and which don't. So it's easy to be able to pinpoint those things down, along with spiritual work and soul searching and coaching and all those other things. So that just leads into the topic of, the 3 types of men you should not want to keep in your life. Abusers. You cannot change a man. And I know people, all men are not abusers. Some women abuse too. They do, but I'm not talking about that. I'm not a man. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about men that abuse women. Abusers, you should run from an abusive man, because abusive men, there's something within themselves that's causing them to be that way. There's nothing you can do to change him. Nothing. And I know a lot of women think that, because a lot of times, and this is how the trick that gets played on women that think that they can change a man. It's an ego game, because what happens is you start to think that you're better than all the previous women that he's been with, that you have something special that they didn't. That you have something special that's going to exempt you from him treating you the same way. It has nothing to do with the women at all. And this is a fabricated lie. And I'm going to use some Christian language here, of the devil. It's a fabricated lie for a woman to think that she's more spiritual, or they weren't spiritual. I pray more. I go to church. It does not matter. The issue is not the women. And a lot of times that's what the women think, that enter into these relationships with these abusive men, thinking that they can change them. And this is what the men say, but it's not the women. It's the man. As anybody that changes anything about themselves, if whatever it is, alcoholism, shopping addiction, a porn addiction, a gambling addiction, eating too much, trying to lose, it starts with you. People can give you tips. People can give you all guidance, support, coaching. But at the end of the day, you're the one that has to make those ultimate choices. Let's say, for instance, if you say, okay, I'm going to stop eating, too much sugar. And you can go to the doctor and they can tell you don't eat too much sugar. They give you all the guidance. You can go to people, they can send you text in the morning. Oh, your motivational tip for the day. Make sure you don't consume this amount. If you drink water before you eat, then you won't be, tempted to eat too much. All this stuff. But at the end of the day, when you go into the refrigerator, when you go to work and your coworker is eating donuts or banana pudding and they offer you some, it's you. It's you that is either going to have to accept or decline that offer. So it's the people can't do that for you. And so the same thing goes with an abusive man. You cannot change an abusive man. You cannot change him, period. Not to say that a relationship can't work, but I would say tread very, very lightly there. Very, very lightly. Because then it gets into that attitude again of sometimes, a lot of times we think that we can change people. So even when you're thinking that, okay, you know what, I'm waiting for this relationship to change, then when do you draw the line? What's going to be the ultimate final, either this is walk away situation. Sometimes people go to their grave. You may not be able to walk away. Okay. So abusive men, you should not want to keep that type of man in your life. A cheater, a chronic cheater. I'm not talking about a man that slips up, and that's not my business. And I'm not going to go, oh, should you stay? That ain't my business. I don't care, to each its own. My point is, a chronic cheater, somebody that's constantly cheating. And it becomes okay because of the cultural norms. Oh, that's just what men do. Oh, he come home every night. Oh, he provides for the family. Oh, he's a good provider. So certain things and certain behaviors are excused. A man that cheats can send you to your grave. Let's say, for instance, he brings you some type of sexually transmitted disease. I know they have medicines now that you can take for AIDS, and it's not detectable and so forth and so on. But there's other types of diseases you can get as well. There's things that can harm your reproductive organs. So if you're a woman and you haven't had children and you want children, if you sleep with the man and he gives you certain diseases, that might keep you from having children. Okay, so a cheater. How about, I don't know if you ever, this show, they used to have, what was this show called? I don't know if it was Snapped. It was some show, but anyway, most of the stories on this particular show, these are true stories, were about like lover scorn. A person that would find out that somebody's cheating, and then the person would try to kill the other person. What was that story? Amy Fisher. Is that not what happened in that situation? Where she's cheating with this man. She goes to the man's house where his wife is. And I don't know what she did. Did she stab the woman in the face or shoot her in the face or something crazy? So I would never, a chronic cheater, a cheater, And it's a difference between a cheater and a man that has cheated. Totally different. A cheater is like, this is a problem. This is just who you are. This is what you do. Run. Period. Run. And people could make that seem like a light situation, like, oh, all men do it and all this. But again, that'll send you to your grave. How do you know you're not dealing with the psychopath? How do you know, or he's not, excuse me, how do you know he's not dealing with the psychopath? You know, a woman that, and you see these stories, I don't know which one of these shows used to, you know, these stories on where the woman or the man, because it happens on the other side, they want the man or the woman so bad that they want to get rid of the spouse. They want to get rid of the person, meaning they want to like send this person out of this earth. Who's to say that the woman that the man you're married to or in a relationship is not dealing with that type of a woman? Why take that risk with your life? Well, chronic cheater, run. Third, a man that is not honest, a dishonest man, because you have to have trust in a relationship. You have to have trust in a relationship. And typically a man that's not honest, he won't respect boundaries. That typically leads into cheating because he doesn't respect boundaries. He's not honest. He's not honorable. How do you know what he's saying? You're trying to build a solid family. What about the finances? You may not even know what debt that he has, bringing in debt that he accumulates. You know, he might be a chronic gambler. You might not know until the people come and try to foreclose on your home, you know, if you don't handle the finances, that this man has a gambling problem. You know, so trust. Run from a dishonest, disloyal man. And that goes for, you know, men as well. But again, I'm talking to women because I'm not a man. So I don't know, you know, what men issues and so far. I could just speak from a woman's point of view. But I will say this to a woman, run from a woman like that. That's dishonest and disloyal. And don't think that you're so special and you're going to save her, because people have to want to change. And you can tell when a person really wants to change, because those things are typically underway already. And there's certain things that you can see when a person really is changing. And a lot of times, you know, depending on what age you are, you know, you have to ask yourself, do you want to go through that process with a person for them to change? You know, when you're married, you typically have signed up to do that. But if you're not married to the person, you know, you're not signed up to have to go through those things with that person. And that's a lot of times what women do. We're in relationships with these men. We're not married. They're not our spouse. And we've signed ourselves up to go through all these trials and tribulations with this man. And then you don't even end up getting married to him. You cheated on, went through all these little trials, broken heart, you're miserable. And then at the end of the day, y'all don't even get married. So you didn't sit there and went through all that trial, all that heartache, all that pain for a man that's not even your husband. It's not worth it. You know, and then the last thing is, if this is the options, because I know a lot of times people say this, oh, you're going to be by yourself, you know, because I hear it. I'm just going to be honest. You know, I hear those things. I'm 44. I've never been married before, but I used to think like, you know, let those things get into my mind. But then I start thinking about it, but like, wait a minute, should I actually kind of look at it and say, and be glad that I avoided some of avoided the financial problems and all the entanglements that people do have to go through when they do end up marrying the wrong person? Some people marry the wrong person. Thank God I'm not going to go there. But anyways, the point being, because this is not about me, the point is that you should avoid these 3 type of men, even if it means you have to be by yourself. And a lot of times that's a woman's fear, that they're going to be by themselves. So they will accept a cheater. They will accept abuse. They will accept a disloyal, dishonest man because they don't want to be by themselves. They don't want the social stigma of being by themselves, you know, either at a certain age or in a certain community that's frowned on, being, you know, single. You know, you get labeled different things. And so sometimes, though, it's better to be by yourself. it is better to be by yourself. And I know a lot of older women that have been married and that have dealt with men in one of these three categories that I just spoke of can vouch for what I'm saying and say that they would have preferred, they would have chose being by themselves and being alone than going through the trauma and the issues that they dealt with and being married to these type of men. So sometimes you have to make that choice and draw that line in the sand and say like, hey, if it means that I will be by myself, if I let this particular person go, or if I avoid this particular type of relationship, because some people say, well, all men cheat. All men are, you always going to find, ain't no man that's going, you know what? So sometimes you have to draw that line in the sand and say, well, if all of them are like this, if these are my choices, a cheater, a liar, a cheater, again, I say a man that cheat. I'm not, and that's, different topic. Whether, person that cheats sometimes, do you accept that? That's a whole different topic. A cheater, if that's the options, a cheater, an abuser, and a liar, if these are the only option, then it's better to be alone. Period. It's better to be by yourself. You can get more accomplishments in life. You can be happier. You can be fulfilled. You can avoid a lot of the trauma and the heartache. Now, I want to end it on a good note. So there are some things that you can look for in what things are good qualities to look for in a man, because I don't believe that there's only cheaters, abusers, and liars. I don't believe that that's the pickings. Those are the pickings, the cheaters, the abusers, and the liars. So then it's important to get to the other side to see, especially women that have dealt with these particular types of issues with these type of men, is not to give up and to say all of men are like this and either settle for men that are like that, or settle for being by yourself because that's what you just think that exists. But really truly believe that there are good men out there. What is a good man? A man that is honorable, not one that's putting up a front to be honorable, but an honorable man. There are men that are honorable, but there are men that are kind to their heart. They're kind-hearted, not displays of kindness, not displays of that, but really kind to their heart, kind to their core. They're kind men. And giving men, a man that is just a giving man. Usually those things usually go hand in hand. They usually go hand in hand. And so the thing is to put those things to the test. To put it to the test, because some things in life we haven't experienced before. We haven't seen it. Some people haven't seen Africa until they touch their foot on the soil. But to say that Africa doesn't exist just because you haven't experienced it, would be ludicrous. So to say that these particular type of men don't exist, the kind, the honorable, the giving man, just because you haven't experienced it, you might be selling yourself short. So the thing is to get to the other side. Let that go. If you're with that type of man, let that type of a man go and make the stance. This is the type of man that I want. Then when you focus on the type of man that you want, then you will attract that to you. I am a firm believer in the law of attraction, and the law of attraction, not just, manifesting this, for the beautiful stuff, but I also believe in the law of attraction that life is what you make it. If you're always focused on the negative, a lot of times that's why we stay in poverty. That's why in certain communities, certain things are rampant, because we are conditioned into living certain types of lives and certain type of lifestyles. We let conditioning tell us how we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to speak, what we're supposed to achieve, what we're supposed to accept. So we let societal pressures determine when and how we do things, versus letting the natural course of life and spontaneity, I'll be saying this stuff wrong, and God, there is a spiritual aspect to life, and God determined those things. Everybody's not supposed to have certain things at the same time all the time, so we have to make room for those things to come in, for God's presence to be able, or spiritual presence to be able to come in, Or sometimes some of us are working out generational curses. This goes back to, being able to work, not having certain things at certain points in life. Sometimes some of us are not ready. Some of us are not ready. I'll speak for myself, and I can honestly say at 40, I'm 44 years old. Had I got married all the times that I just thought I was going to die if I didn't get married, it would have been a total disaster because I wasn't healed. There are some things that are handed down to us generationally that you don't even know. Once you get married to a certain person, that's why in certain cultures, like in the Yoruba culture in Africa, and not all, because all Yorubas don't do this, but some people go to, divination, and that's a totally different topic, divination. But you can go to the Bible. Let me put that insert in there too. Go to Revelation, and I wrote it down somewhere, so I'll, post that with this video if I can, but speaks of casting lots. Speaks of the disciples specifically, because I know a lot of people say just because it's in the Bible don't mean you're supposed to do it. Just because they did it, you're not supposed to do it. Well, who makes the determination of what stuff you're supposed, when the disciples are doing certain things, not just random people, but disciples and there was a positive result from it, and it's not something that is, because God speaks in the Bible and he frowns on certain things. Even when people do things that are against his will, it will clearly speak in the Bible if those things were against God's will. So when that's not spoken of in the Bible, who's to say that those things are not proper? Somebody should explain to me what the difference is between casting lots and divination. What's the difference between those things? And seeking out, using tools, because that's really when you're talking about, because people speak of like prophecy, different from people that use certain things like shells and things. Those things are usually frowned on, but in the Bible they cast lots. And there's a difference between prophecy, someone that is just prophesying. They're not using any type of tools at all. There's no bones, there's no shells, there's nothing. There's no rocks. But in this specific, in Revelation, they're not speaking of prophecy. They're speaking of when they were looking for the disciple, the replacement for Judas, after Judas had betrayed Jesus and killed himself. They were looking for a replacement. So it says that they casted lots to determine who would be the replacement for Judas. Okay, so let me throw that in there. But I brought that up to say in some cultures, when two people are getting married, they do divination. They have to determine whether these two people are even compatible. Guess why? Because when you marry this person, guess what's going to happen? That family's generational curses and demons and yours going to meet. And it might be some issues that go on when those two families and the spirits that run in two of those different families come face to face, so to speak. There might be some issues. And then you're wondering why certain things are happening that can't be really explained away. And it's just like, why does this keep happening? Or why is this going on? It's because all these things are going on in the spiritual realm. Okay. So I'm saying that to say sometimes people are not ready to be married. You can't go by societal pressures or societal markings to say, oh, you need to be married by this time and do this. Why? Because sometimes you need to work those things out, because if you don't, and you meet up with someone and those things are not worked out, it's going to be all kind of hell and confusion going on in y'all household. It's going to be a disaster and it's going to be a mess. So sometimes we have to work those things out before two people join and become one. Because if you don't, that is when people get married to people. A lot of times they end up in divorce. Sometimes these relationships aren't even supposed to end in divorce, but there's so many issues that's going on that the pressure is too much for the relationship to bear. So I'm going to end it with that and just say that sometimes we just need some divine assistance in these relationships. And sometimes we need some divine insight as to what is going on in these relationships and how to deal with them properly. Now, that being said, whether I am married or not should not have a bearing on whether I can be able to provide that insight. I have live chat, so if you want to test it out, I don't know how long I'm gonna let you sit there and test it without you paying, but I will offer, free consultation if you want to test and determine whether I'm able to provide that service to you or not. So if you want to reach out, and I'll gladly do so.